So, Venerable Chodron asked the question this morning in her teaching, who cares if they're old and ugly? I do. Yeah. I really care. And I'm trying not to care, especially moving here. But yes, this is quite an ongoing process. And I've been trying to do this by contemplating the unattractiveness of this body. Because this winter retreat, I actually kind of got a sense, a real sense of what is going on here, what's my predicament in this thing, which I had never gotten before. And yeah, I feel like it was a real opportunity. It was a real privilege to be able to do that, because it's not every day that people get to see the deep layers of misconception in relation to their own and others' bodies. So I'm very grateful for that. And what I have seen so far in my contemplations, kind of just maybe not so much on the cushion, but in daily life, is how much more I actually identify with my appearance, and how much more I see how this body looks inherently existent to me. So I can plainly see this, of all places, when I brush my teeth in the morning, like in the mirror. There's a lot of things I do when I brush my teeth and look in the mirror. I notice. I look at the outer appearance of my face and I think, yeah, that's me, that's Moonsul. There's an eye there. Moonsul owns this face. Moonsul is in this face. Those are kind of the two thoughts that I've identified when I look at this face. And I also, I'm constantly trying to look at the angle of my face. Like, what is the best angle? Like, what's the most attractive angle of this face? I do that so often. And, I'm trying to look good. I'm trying to convince myself that I am attractive. And I've done this my whole life. Most of us have probably done this. And yeah, I'm starting to realize that I do this multiple times a day, and I'm actually perpetuating this delusion that this body and this face is attractive, which is not what I want to do. It's an exaggeration, as Venerable mentions. So what I've been trying to do, instead of just looking at trying to perceive attractiveness when I brush my teeth, is I'm trying to look at this face, and I'm trying to see the skull that lies underneath it in the mirror. I'm saying to myself, actually, the bulk of this face is made up by this skull that's underneath it. This would just be this floppy thing without the skull. And I would be pretty horrified. So, and there's capillaries underneath this face. There's many capillaries and veins, and so many. And then there's the eye socket, and then there's these eyeballs, and then I can see my skull, like my teeth. It's part of my skull. So when I look at myself that way, it feels more real. It feels more realistic, and it kind of feels like a relief, because I don't feel so vain, Yeah, so, and I can also see, okay, I can back off a little bit and think, okay, yeah, I'm made of parts. This thing, this fleshy thing, this is just a bunch of parts. Okay. So, yes, but I am very fascinated about, how does this body actually look underneath all these projections and superimpositions? How would this body look realistically without all this garbage? And there's just so many layers of obscuration. It's like, what is this real situation? So I've been trying to get to know this body more realistically. And another thing I've been doing is I've kind of just been in meditation visualizing this body sitting as a skeleton and getting familiar with the parts of where the bones would be in this body. And that's really helpful because, for example, when I look at my wrist and my hand, I've seen a picture of the skin peeled back from someone else, and a lot of it's just bone, a lot of it's just bone. So I look at my hand like that and I'll get a sense of, oh, yes, this is very impersonal, this is fleeting, this is not autonomous. I definitely don't identify with that thing, so that's helpful. And I've been doing the dishes, like, who's washing the dishes? Oh, a skeleton's washing the dishes, like an animate skeleton. I like to go into seeing the body as a corpse someday, but that's a little much for me at this moment. So a skeleton I can do. So I've noticed that seeing myself as attractive comes up a lot, especially in memories. And it's really actually a hindrance. It's a kind of a big obstacle in my meditations and in my daily life. So it's good to start seeing that. And I've also noticed that being here when I do meditations, I mostly focus on, the external body. I focus on other people's dukkha or other people's foulness, not so much my own foulness. And I realize, okay, that's not a wholesome picture. So there's some resistance there, of course, but I feel very fascinated, so I think it would be really good to start doing that to get a more rounded out picture of the situation. So I'd like to end with a really helpful quote by Ajahn Mahabua, who emphasizes the importance of inner reflection, either more or just as much as external kind of reflection. He says, "We study the Four Noble Truths here in our body. In other words, we study birth, aging, illness, and death, all of which lie in this single heap of elements, without ever leaving it. Birth is an affair of these elements. Growing up or growing old, it's old right here. When there's illness, it manages to be ill right here, in one part or another. When death comes, it dies right here. So we have to study right here. Where else would we study? We have to study and know the things that involve us directly before we study anything else. We have to study them comprehensively and to completion, studying our own birth, our own aging, our own illness, and our own pain, and completing our study of our own death. That's when we'll be wise to all the events around us."